The inflation Doom Vortex is approaching. Will it swallow us all? Dun dun dun. Hello again, this is Douglas Lucky Larson with the Retire Early and Often channel. And today we're discussing inflation. Again, because it's up at a 40-year high. Wow. So the last time the USA saw significant inflation, I was very little and had no clue what was going on around me economically. As I read the history of it all, there were several factors at play, including many common elements that we can see today as we quickly approach 2022. Now, if you looked into this inflation thing at all, you see political people, all your politicians and political appointees, and their critics talking about supply chains and energy costs, but no one really taking responsibility. Now, there's a lot of anger at big corporations who seem to be taking some profits and maybe they're jacking prices, while at the same time these corporations are complaining of ever-increasing wage costs and benefit obligations. While politicians, corporations, and media sources play the blame game, real people are seeing their budgets getting busted. Now, asset owners like stockholders and landlords are seeing our net worths grow, but so are taxes, insurance, maintenance costs, along with those politicians promising to raise taxes even more. This kind of inflation doom vortex happened in the late 70s, but many people are comparing our current inflation cycle more to the 1940s. Now, there are some brilliant people like Jim Rickards, Jeff Snyder, Jeff Booth, Lynn Alden, Lynette Zhang, Steve Van Meter, Danielle DiMartino Booth, and others, and they all have a slightly different take on inflation, disinflation, that's the deceleration of still inflation, and then also deflation itself, along with recession and depression. Now, the indicators they follow and their conclusions they came up with, again, they're brilliant. They have incredible analysis. However, in the end, unless you're an economist, a professor, or just a total nerd, it kind of doesn't matter what the details look like under a microscope. What most of us care about is taking care of ourselves and our families during the turbulent times we're likely to see in the next months and years ahead. So, who survived and even thrived in the last two significant inflationary periods, the 1940s and then the late 70s and early 80s? And what lessons can we learn and apply? We've heard a lot of people talking about a K-shaped recovery, meaning that after the initial economic shock of COVID and each country's reaction and overreaction, some sectors and companies recovered or came through it very well, or even stronger than before. You think of Amazon and Netflix and Zoom and even Walmart. Now, the suburban and rural real estate markets in many areas also boomed. As we know, travel and tourism and many smaller businesses and restaurants failed, which makes up that down leg of the K. Now, talking again about inflation, we have also seen a K-shaped price change over the last year and a half. Now, some grocery store items have shot up between 10 and 50%, and some have stayed the same or gone down. Personally, I've seen no difference in the cost of pasta and ice cream, a couple of my favorite food staples. Going out to a restaurant, though, that has gone up at least 20% or more. And I'm not even a food snob. You know, sandwich shops, gourmet burritos, and my favorite Chinese food with a little panda, oink, oink. Yeah, they've all gone up. Restaurants, you have to understand, though, not only have to pay slightly higher food prices, especially meat right now, but also higher wages and higher operating costs due to protective equipment and more cleaning than ever, and even fewer tables spaced further apart. If we look at real estate, one of my other favorite topics, besides, the ice cream and pasta, home prices and rents have gone up outside of the big cities and downtown areas. However, retail spaces have generally gone down, and we're seeing a lot more vacant buildings. Now, especially in the downtown areas, that's true. However, one bright spot for real estate is warehousing space. It's definitely seen higher demand and higher prices. Again, this is K-shaped inflation. As I mentioned above, some things going up, some things going down. That gives you that K shape. Now, for inflation to truly enter the Doom Loop feedback that it needs to happen so that we see these, just crazy price hikes. We see other things like, the worker strikes. Oh, we need more money, we need more benefits, and all those things. And then those workers, I mean, let's face it, they're just trying to keep up with the higher prices of food and fuel and housing and insurance, right? Including, healthcare itself. When all these things keep creeping higher or even shooting higher, it becomes that doom loop that just keeps feeding on itself. Of course, the politicians are likely to step in, as they've done in times past, with attempted price controls, even wage controls, and even rationing of goods. And that's not good for anybody, because social unrest often follows. Again, I don't want to be a downer, but who did well in the past, or at least kept their head above water and didn't drown? In the late 70s and also in the 1940s, if you owned an average home, or maybe 5 of them, and you were able to pay your bills, those homes doubled or tripled in price during those inflationary times. Stocks, however, during the same period were down. Seriously, that was like 2 different decades with no net gain on the S&P and actual losses during the same 10-year periods on the Dow. Yikes. So again, during the 1940s and then also from, say, 75 to 85, who came through in the best position? Well, it was, if you owned gold and silver, you did just okay in the 40s, but after the 1970s, and we took gold off our monetary system off the gold standard, man, gold and silver went way up. Even after adjusting for inflation, they were sky high. Other people who owned quality, lower-end, single-family homes and rental units in areas with good infrastructure, safety, and jobs, they also did very well. And of course, there were brilliant, or at least lucky investors who cherry-picked the best companies and stocks and did very well. Now, if you're not Warren Buffett and you don't have the resources or the desire to get some cash-flowing real estate, there are other options, including just gaining some great skill sets that will always pay dividends during bad times and good. Now, what skills do you have and what can you learn? If you're working at a McJob, this could be a great time to go back to school and get some other training. Some people today are talking about, I'm just going to get rich in the crypto space. And it's been really volatile here at the end of 2021. A little bit risky. And to throw all your chips on the table for that, or green energy, self-driving cars, hey, I'm bullish on all those things in the long run. But we may have 5 or 10 years of real tough times ahead. Now, we're going to pay a lot for energy and, in turn, everything transported and made with energy over the next few years, and that's going to hurt people's budgets. If they don't have money for the basics, I don't know. I just can't see people buying a lot of 100K self-driving Teslas. Looking to the past doesn't always give us the answers. Let's look at the next slide. Comparing us now to the 1940s ignores that the first half of that decade, from 1940 through 1945, that was World War II, right? Now, we had just come out of the Great Depression, and then, we had the drought and the Dust Bowls during that time. Horrible, horrible times. And, there was starvation and 25% unemployment. And then we had war. And a lot of people say, the war took us out of the Great Depression. Okay, yeah, but it was still a tough time. War is not good. Not good for anybody. except if you're a daddy warbucks, war profiteer. Maybe it's good for you if you got government contracts and you just happen to be making missiles. But history shows us it was an unbelievably ugly time. Now, I couldn't help but laugh during 2008 and 9 when people compared that time, the Great Financial Crisis, to the Great Depression. Come on, not even close. In the 1930s, people lined up for soup and other very scarce resources. Gotta love some of these photos you can dig up in history. Soup, lining up for soup. These are grown men. Crazy times. However, in the Great Financial Crisis, what are they lining up for here? The latest Harry Potter books and the latest iPhone. This was the iPhone 4 launch. Draws huge crowds. I remember that. I wasn't, camping out overnight to do this kind of crazy stuff back in 08 and 09. But you know what? These are not soup kitchen lines, okay? Do these people look underfed to you? I don't think so. In the 1930s, my own grandfather was one of thousands of young men and even middle-aged men who just roamed through the towns and cities on the railroads by jumping onto boxcars. They'd stop here and there to find little odd jobs and a little food. Most people in the U.S. today have no clue what that was really like. Not to have shelter or know where your next meal's going to come from. I did not grow up wealthy, but I'll admit I'm a totally soft sissy compared to some of my ancestors. My grandfather, hopping trains from town to town and finding odd jobs, picked up some skills in carpentry. And when things got a little better, eventually he used those skills building houses in LA and other cities in Southern California from the 1940s through the 1960s. He even built his own house and some rental units in back. Now, when humans are in easy times, we tend to assume that those easy times will simply continue. If you don't think we're in easy times, just realize that most royalty in the last 6,000 years of recorded history, up through, say, 1900, would have killed to have some of the conveniences and the access to information and education, communication, and, say, food choices and medical access that we take for granted in the West every day. A multimillionaire in the United States in the 1950s could not have imagined the options that we enjoy for education and entertainment held right in the palm of your hand, in your phone. We often hear people complaining about the shrinking middle class, but literally half of this world right now, outside of, Western Europe and United States, Canada, Australia, half the world's population barely survives on a few dollars a day for food and very modest housing. So again, in easy times, and if you're watching this video, you're probably in easy times, humans tend to assume that the easy times will just continue. And in hard times, we're so busy surviving, we don't put a lot of time and energy toward long-term goals and skills acquisition. Right now, before things get too choppy, we need to learn more and prepare just a little better for the choppy waters just around the bend in the river. We can't quite see those rapids, but we can hear them. Hello. Now, because I like to summarize and give a little bit of infotainment that might be usable, this is not financial advice or recommendations, all right? It's education that might be helpful. Let's turn to the next slide. What can you do? So, number one, do not go into debt for stupid things, for toys and cars or stocks on margin. Debt for dumb stuff will make you a debt slave. 2, if you have some extra time, get some skills and practical education. Medical training, like a paramedic or a nurse or a first responder, or even just basic first aid can be useful no matter what else you do. Trade skills like electrical, plumbing, car and diesel mechanics. Even barbers have a great and necessary skill. These skills don't have to become your day job, but can help you in many ways in the future. Now, especially if we see some really tough times, these things can be barterable skills. You might be able to trade for some food if things really get that bad. All right. Maybe learn to grow a garden as well. That's a great skill. Lots of people these days are talking about super high energy costs and scarcity in, say, fertilizer. The last time I checked, we all like to eat, yeah? So some fruits and vegetables right in your backyard could only be a good thing, right? Yeah, if I can garden, I'm okay. I just throw some seeds in the ground and I see what happens. I make sure it gets watered, the sun does the rest. It's like a miracle. Stuff happens. We get food. If I can do it, you can do it. If you have a little extra money, then stock up on some extra basics like food, water, maybe a generator or a basic solar system for backup power. Important things. Number 4, if you have a lot of extra money, buy assets that pay you, like cash flowing real estate, maybe energy stocks, like oil companies that have dividends. Number 5, tell your friends and family members, and take this advice yourself, to be just a little more careful these days with their budgets, investments, and speculations. Yeah, we all get, big giant eyes. Oh, look what so-and-so, we got the, fear of missing out, the FOMO, and we don't want to be left behind, but just be careful. Just be careful. Rapids are around the bend. Number 6, finally, connect with like-minded people that you can trust in tough times. Chris Martenson of peakprosperity.com has some great resources on being resilient when unexpected and unwanted surprises come our way. The relationships that you have and the social and cultural support around you is unbelievably important during tough times. You could have 10 tons of gold and live in a military bunker, but without relationships, life would still kind of suck. And all the walls and razor wire that you could possibly build would not protect you from hordes of desperate, hungry, or angry people that want to take your stuff. As Chris Martenson says, cultural and social capital will be just as important, if not more important, than other preparations that you can make. Now, Chris Martenson and Peak Prosperity and his friend Adam Taggart, these guys are not like, build a bunker in your backyard kind of, prepper guys. These are just ordinary guys that are just, they know that troubled times are ahead because they watch these things. You never know if real double-digit inflation is really going to take off, or another variant, scariant, even worse than the Delta or the Omicron or whatever else we've seen. It could be just around the corner. Who knows? Maybe even a giant tornado is just going to drop out of the sky in December. Oh, wait, that just happened. And it can blow away your entire town. Be prepared, and you will not be scared. Pause for a moment. I'd sure appreciate it if you give us a thumbs up and like and subscribe and share this infotainment if you find it helpful at all. Now, thanks again. Hope to see you on the next video.